Yeah. Doe one. Rocky Mountain Sports Report, yeah, live and direct. Keep them shook, defend like Champ Bailey and Adam Foot, no joking. I'll block it out like Jokic, and now you see him blurry. Lost in the rain of threes from Jamal Murray. Oh, step up to the plate. Colorado landscape outstanding, reporting all the facts in. We out the park like black men, or better yet, Chuck Nasty.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is David with Rocky Mountain Sports Report. I'm joined by Matt and Keith for your Wednesday episode of 4th&99, your Denver Broncos and NFL live stream. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and and Matt sleeping or something up there.
No, I'm finishing our shares.
Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsors. We got Stoke to Fire, the barbecue superstore in Loveland, Colorado. Hit up Frank at that store there. He will hook you up with all your barbecue needs and your grilling accessories, etc. We got Avacor Mobile Power Wash. They will take care of any commercial power washing needs that you have. If you got a truck fleet or big dumpsters or anything you need power washed, hit up Avacor and they will take care of you. And then we got Willow Seasonings, a Colorado-owned seasoning company who currently has 4 product lines on the market. During the month of October, if you use promo code GHOST15, you will get a 15% product discount when you order online. So
you repeat that promo code. I'll put it in the comments right now.
GHOST, GHOST 15. And just put that in when you go to checkout and hit apply, and it'll take 15% off your products.
That's awesome. So, I might have to visit, man. We've been getting a bunch of grass-fed beef, all different cuts, and I need some seasoning. So Ghost 15 for me, man.
Yep, I got a salt, pepper, garlic that will do that meat some justice.
Wonderful,
especially that beef.
I think I've had it for less than a month, and I'm probably like under a half a bottle left. It's a weekly staple in this household.
It's a seasoning for everything for Matt.
Hey, it's salt, pepper,
cereal.
How could you go wrong?
He's using cereal and other things.
Donuts.
And
whoa. Okay, now we're getting a little extreme.
We also have a fajita seasoning. I think Matt has tried that as well. So
fantastic as well.
Which has a hint of lime added to it. So it gives it a nice twist. So everybody out there, do yourselves a favor and support a Colorado small business, veteran owned, and also get yourself some good barbecue seasonings.
Yeah.
Or just something to use in the kitchen. You don't have to barbecue to use them. So
there you go.
Absolutely.
Sounds good, man.
Matt, Keith, how you guys doing tonight?
Had time to cool down a little bit. I think I'm all right. Yeah. How about you?
About the same. I've had time to think about it, reflect a little, cool down a little bit. Still some areas that get under my skin, but
no, I'm still pretty pissed. I'm just kidding. No. And then from where we went, from the high that I had to come from when I was up here, felt like I was at the top of a pedestal, came crashing down to reality. It's been an unwelcomed feeling all week, but I've had time to process some of it, and that's going to lead us right into the first segment, cool down week 4 review. So essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to go through each position group. We'll start on the offense, work our way to the defense, kind of give our cool down grade. Let's just say a grade, and see where it goes. So we'll start with the most important position in football. Let's start with the quarterback position. We'll do Keith, Dave, and then I'll wrap up myself, and then we'll do that. We'll keep that same format.
Boy, make it quick. I'll say it's C+. There's obviously room for improvement, but they're not completely to blame. And we can get to a little bit more of those details later. How about you, Dave?
I think I'm going to have to, agree. I would say a C plus in that area. think a lot of it was the play calling that was utilized, but something we can talk about later.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna shift away from the C. I'm actually gonna go lower. I'm gonna give them about a D minus. And while I feel there was some other factors into it, and it's not entirely their fault, having a chance to go back and look at it, we've seen some terrible inaccuracies. Something that Teddy Bridgewater wasn't displaying in the first 3 weeks. We've seen a couple missed passes to Sutton across the middle. We've seen an errant throw out to the sideline, and then same thing in second half. It just seemed like there was a lot of inaccuracy, a lot of miscommunications between receiver and quarterback, and that's stuff that both quarterbacks will have to adjust to and get a hold of in the huddle. If Teddy Bridgewater might have been rattled, he was getting hit left and right. We're assuming the concussion happened on that kind of last drive, but he was getting rocked all game. He might have been hurting, so we don't know where it's at. For Drew Lock, we heard the rumors, scout quarterback, limited reps. That's fine and dandy, but at the same time, you got on the pitch and catch plays, those screen plays that are just a few yards down the field, we got to be hitting those. So I give him a D overall. Worst performance from the quarterback room we've seen all year, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, definitely, it is the worst performance. Teddy goes from 78% completion rate to 43%.
Yeah, it was rough.
And it's sort of like I brought up in the post-game show. I think some of that can be attributed to playing a higher quality opponent.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And I need to fix this light issue.
All right.
You get after it, man.
There you go.
There we go. There.
Well, Dave is working on the light issue. We will.
My lighting tech quit, so I'm on my own.
Speaking of that, for the first time ever, it's not guaranteed yet, but next week we may officially have our first producer for the show, which will help bring up some other graphics and cool things like that while we're on the show.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's not set in stone yet, but it's coming within the next couple of weeks. So fingers crossed we get those kinks worked out, and I'm not having to be the producer because I'm not the greatest at it.
So, and people out there that are listening, as we go through these groups, go ahead and throw your grade for these position groups. Throw it out there in the comments so we can see what you guys think.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next position group on the offense, let's focus on the running backs. What's your cool down review of the running back room from this past week?
For me, to be honest, I was pretty high on them to begin with. So I'm probably going to give them a solid B overall. Would have liked to seen a lot more yards, obviously, on the stat board. But I think if we look at yards per carry and the production we got once we had a running back hand of the football, there's nothing to complain about. Love to give them a higher grade, but really just didn't get enough numbers on the stat sheet in order to give them a true A or higher. So, Dave?
And I'm going to go with a B plus, A minus. I'm along the same lines as Keith. When they gave them the ball, these guys produced. They averaged 6.2 yards per carry. It's not their fault that the coaches weren't calling the game right. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, keep hitting it. This is what everyone's hitting at. We're going to completely berate the coaches later. Is essentially what's going to happen. But for the running back room, I'm going to give them an A minus as well, just based on effort. That run by Javonte Williams, I don't know the effort that man put into there. I thought for a minute he might carry the whole Ravens defense into the end zone. He was just chugging along. After that run, I don't know how you couldn't feel motivated to keep your stick with it. But like we said, we will hit on these coaches a little bit later in the show. But I give the running backs an A minus as well.
Hey, just a little shout out, Matt. That Javonte Williams run made Good Morning Football. It made their angry run. It was the winner unanimously. Angry run winner, Javonte Williams, 31-yard run. Carried the guy from the 27 to the 12 with him on his back. So
yes, and the scepter is now in Denver. It resides in Denver.
Maybe it'll stay here a couple of weeks because we're gonna have to depend on this running game. If Teddy Bridgewater's not out there, we might have to
take
call
a guess. Keith, take a guess. Who is this comment from?
Mike.
Come on.
I think I know who it is.
Who is it?
That's why I didn't let you go first, Matt.
Go ahead, Keith. He comments every week.
Oh.
I'll give you a hint. I'm pretty sure it starts with a V, right, Dave?
Yes,
Victor.
Hey, but he's not
Sorry.
wrong. At
Victor's
the end of the day,
It's like, man, I know it. So
Victor won't hit that little StreamYard.com/Facebook. He's trying to go incognito,
Victor, you might have to make yourself known because we're going to be talking some Drew Lock eventually in the show. So definitely make yourself known then. All right.
Good old Victor.
Yeah. Right up above where our pretty faces are, Victor, you'll see that little thing that says StreamYard.com/Facebook. Click on that, and it'll allow StreamYard to use your name. They'll only sell your data to the Chinese. Don't worry.
It's all right.
We're already there anyways. Who cares? Moving on, let's talk tight ends.
Boy, tight end. It's another one of those same opportunities type of situations. What I saw even from when Drew Lock came in, Drew Lock made 2 first down completions. I know he didn't have a whole lot of them, but one of them was to Noah Fant. One of them was to Albert O. I think when given the opportunities, again, they shined. So I'm gonna jump up a little bit. I'll give him an A- on this one, and then I'll pass it over to Dave. What do you think?
Wow, we are on clear, separate ends of the spectrum. Now, if I was grading them by individuals and not by a group, I would give Noah Fant probably a B. But Albert O, I would give him an F. That guy dropped a touchdown that would have changed the game.
Yeah.
When that ball hits you right in the hands, like you can't drop that ball.
Yeah.
You got to make that catch. That's a game changer, in my opinion.
Yep.
That would have been.
So overall, I'll give the tight ends a C.
There you
would
go.
have been the Hollywood Brown effect of the opposition of what happened to us. That would have set the tone at a high standard for us, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
If you factor in that over the top play and that monstrous run by Javonte, your offense is going to be feeling like they're on fire.
Yeah.
The momentum would be a whole nother ballgame. So my grade for the tight ends is actually going to be a D as well. And Noah Fant got in the end zone, correct? Yeah, he did. And then he did have a couple good plays, but on the screens when Drew Lock was putting them, because we ran like several tight end screens in the second half. What I've been praising him for is yards after catch, his ability to maneuver and get out into space and make players miss and do things. He looked lost with the ball in his hands in those screen plays. He was running into the back of his offensive lineman. He's getting tackled for 2-yard gains. I mean, it was a mess for me. The tight ends were a mess for me this week. But I get what you're saying. I do evaluate. I think aside from that, you factor in the first downs and the impact Fant had outside of the second half. I would be more closer to your B to the A- B maybe for Fant. But
yeah,
Alberto, you killed the
moment. It's been a day or two since I reviewed, so I in all honesty, I completely forgot about the Albert O play. So I would probably be readjusting my A- when you drop the touchdown, which is obviously not a great thing. So probably at least renegotiate that down into the B- range.
All right, we'll take it. You're forgiven, Keith. You're forgiven.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
But
and this is a good point that Victor makes because Teddy did switch his gloves during the game too. Did you notice that? At first, he started with the white gloves, and then he had these orange gloves that
he probably gave the white ones to Alberto and said, "Learn how to catch."
The orange ones look like the kind of gloves you wear to wash dishes with. They look like they were too big for his hands. Maybe that's why he couldn't hit the passes. I don't know.
I don't know what was going on. Yeah, you saw him flexing his hands all weird. And,
yeah.
Not good.
All right. Now we move on to the wide receivers to wrap. And then we have offensive line after that.
Why don't we start with Dave?
All right, Dave, what you going to do?
Wide receivers, I think they did a decent job for, until we got late in the game. And then Cortland Sutton really angered me. It's like he checked out. As soon as Drew Lock came in the game and Drew Lock missed a pass to him, after that, it's like Cortland just checked out, said, I don't want to perform for this guy. I don't want to help this guy make a case to try to be the starter around here. So, I would say overall, they probably got, maybe a C plus, B minus. When the quarterbacks put it on them. But like I was saying, if we were grading separately, I would probably put Cortland around maybe a D, just because of his effort later in the game, mainly the second half.
That's fair.
I was going to go the same format that you went, last time, or last segment. In the first half, I think we were doing quite well. Tim Patrick came out the gate. He was dropping some first downs. We were moving the ball fairly well when we had time. But similarly, once Teddy went out and the second half came about, all of a sudden we couldn't put anything together. Like you said, that Cortland had two great opportunities in that game, and just seemed like he was not willing to give any effort towards it whatsoever.
Oh yeah, that one down inside the 5-yard line where he would not even try to cut in and go for the ball and make a play on it. That is when I just said Cortland is checked out.
He is done. He was done. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just the way the game was going. I don't know if it was the quarterback change. I don't know if it was just those feelings that you get when the game's falling apart and you've been a part of that for a long time. I don't know what got into him, but it seemed like he was a completely different guy than I saw the first 3 weeks. So all that being said, long-winded explanation, but, I would probably do the same thing, probably an A in the first half, D in the second half. So we're going to put him in probably about a B minus overall. So.
All right, that's fair. I was gonna go C. I mean, I do see some of those same concerns you guys saw. I did see, but I mean, not to highlight just Cortland by himself, but it just seemed like in the second half, the receiving core. I mean, I would even say that even in factoring some of those tight ends, it just felt like the chemistry, the connection, the trust wasn't there after Teddy was replaced by Drew. It just felt like it was no longer there, which unfortunately leads me to believe is, well, how much sway or swagger does Drew really carry in this locker room? And it's making me fearful if he's going to be the starting quarterback next week. Because playing receiver, though, me in high school, I know it's not the same level, but when you don't trust your quarterback or you don't have confidence in your quarterback, unfortunately, it's a mental thing and it does affect your play. You're dropping stupid passes. You're not necessarily checked out, but when you don't trust the guy who's throwing you the ball, you don't play to your 100%. It's just It just happens.
Yeah, I mean, and Drew was better completion percentage wise than Teddy was. Drew completed 57% of his passes. The poor guy was under duress the whole time.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before. The coaching staff decided, well, we're just going to work to Drew's weakness, and we're going to stay in the 3 wide receiver set instead of trying to run the ball, going into a two tight end set where Drew normally dominates from, establish that run game and get into play action passes, because everyone knows Drew's the top 10 quarterback when he's operating out of the play action. But for some reason, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll hit on this.
Coaches wouldn't adjust.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure this is Victor again, but leading us right into the offensive line. I actually want to start this one off because I got a bone to pick with, how I'm always. I give our offensive line an F this week. They were atrocious all across the board. Garrett Bowles, he was bound to have a bad game. He hasn't had one since he signed his big contract. He played really well last year. No one's 100%, so he doesn't get a pass. But it was bound to happen eventually, and it just happened to be this game. And there's who knows, so many factors right in it. They're right at 3-0, whatever. The pressure mounted. He couldn't rise up. He's got to bounce back. The interior offensive line. I mean, it's hard to not be harsh on Cushenberry and Moody. I mean, they've both gotten some decent reps in there. They've got some playing time. Cushenberry was, a full season starter last year, but they were getting knocked around. And Moody's usually a mauler. I don't know if it was just the overcompensation for Quinn Miners, who also looked completely lost out there, but with lack of reps, that's going to happen. And then we factor on the Bobby Massey, who's played solid all season so far. He looked the worst he's looked in the last 2 seasons. He went back to Mitchell Trubisky's Chicago Bears status. It was bad for him as well. But it leads me to go back to it. As bad as the offensive line looked in the first half, they looked even worse in the second half. And I don't know if that comes back down to it. Did the quarterback change impact this offense as a whole? I don't know do they have faith in Drew Lock at all? Because it didn't seem like the coaches did. It seemed like the coaches, which we'll talk about later, just said, we're going to go up and just be aggressive and throw. Was the offense fatigued because it was a constant pressure dealing with Baltimore's blitz packages, or were they checked out as well? That's where hopefully we don't have to find out this weekend, but if he plays, that's where we're going to see.
Well, I'll go next, and I'm not going to give him much better of a grade. But I think when guys were averaging 6.2 yards a carry on the ground, you can't be completely faulting that offensive line. They just weren't given the right game plan or given the right plays called a majority of the time. And
are we going to talk about that later, Keith?
We may talk about that later. But whenever it was a drop back and pass situation, it didn't matter if it was Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock. We had the exact same situation. Those guys were under duress and under pressure the entire time. I think the reason that we think that Drew Lock was no better, they were worse in the second half, possibly, was just quite honestly because Teddy Bridgewater is just a little bit quicker at getting the ball out of there, and they were running the exact same game plan, putting Drew Lock in there, and Drew Lock it doesn't matter if it's a half a second slower. A half a second slower can be the difference between you hitting the ground, getting your arm hit, stumbling, whatever it happens to be, and actually getting the ball out, and at least getting the ball out, giving your receiver a chance. And I think that was the biggest thing. So, like I said, not a big change for me. I'll give him a D overall, but not much above an F. You know what I mean? It's a slim line. It's 6.2 yards per carry, and that's why. So,
and I think I'm going to go along the same lines. A D. I mean, your quarterbacks got sacked 5 times. I don't even know how many QB hits we had, how many pressures we had, but it just seemed like every time we dropped back to pass, I mean, the middle of that offensive line was just like there was a big hole in the dam, and the water was just coming rushing through. And I mean, we had a young rookie or second-year center, and then we have a rookie at left guard, and then we got Mute. I mean,
essentially a rookie.
I mean, who's game-wise experience, a rookie. So, and like we talked about earlier in the year, this was our concern on this team was the depth of the O-line.
Correct.
And it really bit us, especially when you have 2 veteran guards go down at the same time. So, but when we were running the ball, they were doing good, and offensive linemen, I think, would rather run the ball and run block than they would pass block, and as soon as we abandoned the run, then it was over for that offensive line.
Yeah.
So I'll go with D as well.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Now we'll switch our focus over to, defense, and we'll kind of go a rapid fire because there wasn't as many disasters, I guess you could say. There was their fair share, but there wasn't as many defensively as there was offensively. So we'll start with the defensive line. I mean, defensive line, I'll start on this one. Defensive line did fine to me. I mean, they contained the run well. We could have seen more pressure. I would say it was an average day, so I'd go B-.
I'm going to go very similar. I think containing Lamar Jackson is a pretty good feat. I give him probably an A there and a C in the overall game. So a B average is where I come out at. So.
Yeah, and I'm thinking along the same lines. I mean, Baltimore came in averaging, I think, 189 yards a game. They had to call a run play with 3 seconds left in the game to get to 100 yards. So basically, we held them under 100 yards. So, which is a great feat, but I'm very disappointed in the pressure we put on. We had 3 sacks in the game. 2 of them came from safety on blitzes.
Yep.
And then we had a combined 1 sack between Von Miller and Agam.
Yeah,
Agim. Yeah. So each of them had a half sack. I mean, you need your defensive line to consistently put more pressure on quarterbacks. I mean, especially when we have linebackers that struggle in pass coverage, we can't really be putting people in bad situations where they're going to end up, isolated in a situation that's not going to work for them. So our defensive line actually needs to step it up.
Yeah, I've been talking about it for weeks. Our front four has yet to get pressure by themselves. It always needs to come with a blitz. Mm-hmm. We're coming straight for. We're not coming any stunts on at all. We're very predictable across the front, and we're not getting there.
And this was a offensive line that we talked about in the pregame show that was beat up.
Yep.
They have Villanueva who couldn't block a 6th grader anymore.
He ended up going out.
Right. I mean, and we thought, okay, well, Von's going to have his way. Malik could have a great game.
Yep.
It didn't materialize.
It didn't. Good point with the safety blitzes. That's where it all came. That's where all the sacks came from. So
yeah, from Stearns.
Go ahead, Matt. What's the next group?
We'll go edge, and I'll let you start this time, Keith. I mean,
it's a victim of where they were at. I didn't see anything that really set me afire. You know what I mean? But at the same time, they didn't let Lamar Jackson get out and get running. He's known to be able to scramble out and get around that corner. So I'll give him a B just because, once again, they didn't do anything as far as pressure up the front, but they, once again, were able to contain Lamar Jackson and not have him have a big day running all over us. So, or just able to scramble out and have plenty of time to set up and pass it further down the field.
So we have, I'm sorry, you done, Keith?
I am done.
Okay. So we have Von Miller, who had a total of 5 tackles, 1 for loss and a half a sack. Malik Reed, the guy, the only register he had on the stat sheet was a QB hit. No tackles, no sacks, nothing. Jonathan Cooper, 1 tackle. I just don't think these guys really played out like they should have against the offensive line that we all said was having issues. Yeah. Every other team that they've played this year, that offensive line has been dominated, and they dominate our defensive line and our edge guys. So
yeah, I'm
gonna say probably a C just because they did contain Lamar. So I'll give them that benefit.
Okay. I'm going to give them about a C-. I was rather unimpressed by the pressure we were able to put on Lamar. Once again, coming back down to containment, and that ends up really being the only positive from these edge rushers this week. We got the half a sack and tackle for loss, but aside from that, it was pretty lackluster. I mean, they had to go to their 4th string tackle because Villanueva ended up getting hurt midway through the game, and we were still putting no pressure on Lamar at all. Like it was, with the amount of swagger this defense should be carrying and the impact they should be making, especially on a situation like that, it wasn't there. So I give them a D.
Let me ask you both a quick question on this, because we know it's been a problem all year with getting pressure with just our 4 guys.
Yep.
Is this a coaching problem? Is it a scheme problem? Are we just, all right, guys, just rush? We're not trying to stunt, we're not trying to do anything to try to free other guys up. So is this a coaching thing that we'll talk about later in the show?
Absolutely. We're going to talk. I got a whole little good heat wave for that coming for you.
All right.
We need to get through all this other stuff because I got.
That's why I said we go rapid fire. Inside linebacker, I'll give it a quick. Out of the front 7, I feel that they did a very decent job. They plugged their holes. They didn't get destroyed in coverage. They stayed home in their zones, and when they were asked to play man, they kept Mark Andrews and the other tight end somewhat contained. Mark Andrews was too busy beating somebody else up. We'll talk about here once we get to the secondary. So I actually give our inside linebackers a B+. I felt they did did pretty solid.
Matt, I couldn't agree with you more. I saw the exact same thing. I didn't see a whole lot of underneath passing happening. When our majority of our passing happened, it happened either deeper or on the outside edges. A lot of places where those guys weren't even in responsibility in our zone defense. So as far as, obviously, we keep talking about it, they needed the last play of the game in order to get the final run, and we stopped them multiple times on third down and short. Going in and stopped them. It brought up 4th down. I don't know how boring that the first half was, or at the beginning at the edge of my seat I was, as everyone kept punting back and forth. There was a lot of good stops, and that linebacking core had a lot to do with it. So I'll agree 100%. I'll go a B+.
And I'm gonna go around the same area, probably a B+. I mean, they did do great in the run game, and like I said, not any huge mistakes in the pass coverage game. I did see one play where it looked like there was maybe some miscommunication, and it looked like Andrew Johnson didn't pick up Andrews when he probably should have. But other than that, I think they played well. They were great in run support. I mean, Johnson had eight tackles, so he was active, quite a bit during the day. So. And I think Stenard had 2. So, I mean, they were doing what they needed to do.
Yeah, they got the job done. Nothing impressive.
Right.
All righty. Now we get to go to secondary. And I'll let you guys go first. I'm going to break down safeties and corners into 2 separate grades for me. But I'll let you start, Dave. What do you want to give the secondary?
Well, I'm going to give the secondary overall probably maybe a D. And if I had to grade the safeties, it would be a straight up F. This was probably the worst game I've ever seen Justin Simmons play. I don't know if these guys were just checked out on Sunday or what the heck was going on. I mean, you got Marquise Brown that just splits the safeties on that long diving touchdown catch. It's like, what's going on? And then, it's like Matt brought this up earlier. I mean, PS2 is just playing way off his receivers, and I don't know if that was something that was dictated to him by the coaching staff, but I don't think Callahan was bad. Fuller looked off at times. I mean, overall, I just think the secondary was not worth the $70 million that we're paying them, or whatever the heck we're paying the secondary.
This game gave us a vibe of that. Hopefully, they could turn it around. Let's be optimistic, Dave.
Right. So, at least Sunday they didn't earn their money. We'll say that.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. Boy, it's tough to give this secondary any type of a good grade. Simmons was by far, I'll agree, his worst game I've ever seen. He was trailing in coverage. He was obviously on that split. He was part of it. More than anything, in this scheme of defense that these guys they had in front of them, there should have been plenty of opportunities for at least pass breakups, if not interceptions. And they were nowhere near around the ball. Those corners a lot of times were out there making individual tackles if it was done within a 5-yard radius, and any tackles beyond then, maybe a safety is involved at that point. But that's just too late. That's not where these guys should be at. It was astounding to me. And I know that they were bringing Jackson down in the box a little bit more, but then you would think you'd be getting a few more breakups over the middle. Geez, I'm gonna have to give him a D- overall, and the only thing that's saving them is a little bit of corner play that was fairly decent from a few of our guys. I think a lot of it was scheme, like you guys were saying. I think it had a lot to do with not wanting to get corners and linebackers tied up, just in case there was rollouts and sweeps and running plays. You get locked up with a receiver on your corner, and all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson goes for 15 yards. So I think they were playing a little bit softer for that reason alone. But there wasn't any adjustments. We'll get to that later.
Oh yeah, and for me, it is difficult to give them a reasonable grade because of the coaching staff, which we will hit later. But as a whole, it is going to be about a C minus. Justin Simmons, just to piggyback off what you guys said, it was a very bad game for Justin Simmons. It wasn't that great of a game for Kareem Jackson. So I'm going to give the safeties an F. I mean, Jackson was missing tackles left and right. I mean, he was just diving in and just trying to constantly lay the wood, wasn't wrapping up. It looked bad on that side. And then, of course, we've seen Justin Simmons struggle immensely in coverage.
Yeah.
Once we go to the cornerbacks, I'm actually going to give them a little bit higher grade than what you guys did. I'm going to give the cornerbacks a B. And the only cornerback I wanted to kind of harp on today, because Kyle Fuller, I mean, yeah, he could have played a little bit better, but I mean, he played above average. Bryce Callahan probably was the best cornerback on the field last week.
Yep.
And what we finally seen today, and this was something that I talked about during our pre-draft coverage when we were talking about Patrick Surtain. He struggles with fast receivers. I do not think it was up to the coaching staff for him to be off. I think he was worried he was going to get beat over the top, and he knows that he doesn't have the inline speed once that receiver gets behind him to catch up. And unfortunately, what we seen was he wasn't there to jam him. He's not quick enough to close the distance before the slant can get there, and that's 5+ yards at a time. That's the Teddy Bridgewater game plan that's been eating other teams alive, and it will eat him alive. He's got to jam him at the line. He's got to trust the process that the receiver's not going to get behind him.
Yeah.
Part of that reasoning, though, today, I mean, I will factor in coaches on that a little bit, which we'll talk later. These guys were left out on an island this week, and we'll dive into it once we do the coaching review to wrap up the show. Maybe I should have made that the second segment, but
that's all right. Hey, I just wasn't very impressed with Fuller. I felt Fuller was not only out of position, but he was chasing a lot of times as well. You know, and you rack that up with, like you said, Surtain having issues. It was just really tough for me to give those guys a higher grade. I mean, it wasn't 500 yards and 6 TDs. Don't get me wrong. Whenever I think about trying to give some guy an F or an A, you know, I try to keep that in perspective. You know what I mean? But it was tough to watch sometimes. Just completion after completion. It was easily done by the Ravens offense. So.
And I'll kind of dive into this a little bit the same team. The reason why I give Fuller a little bit better of the grade is because if we look at Patrick Surtain and we look at Kyle Fuller, unfortunately there's a lot of similarities between the two of them. They don't have top flight speed, but the one difference we've seen with Kyle Fuller is he was at least trying to jam him at the line.
Well, yeah, and I think Fuller is a seasoned vet, and he's a little more confident in his technique, and maybe PS2's just not confident in his technique yet to do
Absolutely.
that, you know.
And
he got forced.
That is exactly what it is.
He got forced into a starting role probably sooner than he was comfortable to, or with, you know. But these cornerbacks failed at key times in the game, 3rd and shorts, you know, things like that, and they couldn't even defend a slant or anything like that, you know, to stop a drive and get off the field. So, I mean, that's why I'm a little harder on the cornerbacks than you are. I think Callahan is really the only one who played a decent game. The others struggled.
Once we hit the coaching staff, I'll give my 2 cents there.
Okay.
But all right, moving on from the cool down review, because that was a huge chunk. But hey, it's all good.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
We'll go rapid fire through these next couple segments so we can dive into the good stuff. Injury updates. We got some good news today. It sounds like Ronald Darby he was returning to practice this week. He does look like he's going to be playing in Pittsburgh, which will help if PS2 is not completely healthy, and also kind of kick him back down into that role to help him get more comfortable with his technique and things like that. We got good news on Jerry Jeudy as well. It looks like he's going to be right on schedule at the earlier part of the 68 weeks and being able to return against the Browns in week 7. Graham Glasgow still not practicing, or he's practicing on a limited basis. It doesn't sound like he's going to be playing this week. Dalton Reisner, however, is expected to return to practice this week, and it does look like he will be playing this Sunday.
Nice.
lots of good news there. Those are the big ones. Unfortunately,
Well,
Mike Boone as well.
Besides Teddy.
Besides Teddy. Oh, I forgot. See, that's how impressed I am with our quarterbacks, I guess. But Teddy Bridgewater, there is a possibility he will be practicing tomorrow. He did some weightlifting today, as well as some like film stuff with the team. It does seem like he is trending upward to return to practice on Friday, which would likely mean he will be the quarterback, from what I'm hearing, unless he's not deemed clear to practice Friday. So we'll see.
Right.
That's the quick injury update.
And everybody remember now, it is no longer up to team doctors to clear these players. They have to be cleared by an independent neurologist. So it's not like the Broncos can sort of pressure some guy in to say, yeah, let him out there. So,
yeah. And I think it just to highlight the concussion. I mean, I did hear something kind of shady on the radio today. So the way that they do their concussion protocol is at the beginning of the season, every player comes in and has to give a baseline evaluation of the of what their normal functions are for whatever test they're having them run. So one player admitted that was on the show that I was listening to, is that he purposely bombed his initial evaluation so he'd be able to get on the field quicker. It is. I do not understand. I understand the importance of game checks, and I understand the importance of these things. But with the entire CTE stuff that's been going on, all of those types of things, I'm just baffled that some players would still try to get around this system.
Well, and I think now, though, with testing and everything else, and it being done by independent neurologists and things like that, it's probably a little harder. You can't really. You can't fake a CT scan. You can't fake an MRI.
Like those types of things.
If you still are showing swelling or something like that up there, a neurologist isn't going to put his neck on the line and say, yeah, go ahead and go out there.
Oh, yeah. And I think in those cases when they're using imaging and things like that, it's going to be hard. But like the baseline exams that they would use to do their gross motor function and some of those other and reaction times and things like that, he said that a lot of players, especially offensive linemen, were guilty of failing these tests. Doing bare minimum so they can get to the field sooner.
Just a quick update too. I just want to hit the upcoming game. Ben Roethlisberger didn't practice. Cameron Sutton, their cornerback, didn't practice. Kevin Dotson, their offensive lineman, didn't practice. Carlos Davis, defensive tackle, didn't. And just a few limited practice. Chase Claypool, Juju Smith, Trey Turner, Cameron Hayward, among a few others. So.
Did TJ Watt practice?
He sure did.
That's too bad.
Essentially, what we're doing is we're going to be heading into Pittsburgh against another banged up team, similar to what we are. I mean, the banged up team is the kind of the storyline for almost every team out there right now. So
run into it a lot week after week now.
Yep.
What I'm surprised is, I mean, I don't even know what the point of listing Big Ben on an injury report is. The man always has something hurt. You could just put Big Ben.
Just put his name on there.
Dot because there's something lingering.
Just put age.
Right?
Yeah, there you go. That was the quick injury updates for us. And the Steelers heading into next week. We'll kind of stay tuned on our Facebook group page. I post updates every day about injuries and things like that are coming up. So as more information comes available, that's the best place to get it if you want it before we come on one of our pregame shows, which would be our next show. NFL news. So there's tons of stuff going on around the league today. Kind of starting off with the big one in the room, Stephon Gilmore. Initially was going to be cut prior to the deadline of processing at 4 p.m. Eastern time today. Carolina swooped in and stole him for a 6th-round pick. Yeah. I just think that's amazing. I mean, he's an all-pro corner, and you're getting him for next to nothing. Yeah. I don't know how every team in the NFL would not take that deal right now.
Yeah. Right.
But
hats off to the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, they swooped in and thought of it first, or came up with the best offer. Like you said, I'm surprised more guys weren't offering up more, because you throw away 6th-round draft picks every single year, not expecting much out of them, and to get Stephon Gilmore in return is an easy wager for the future. So, hats off to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah,
and I got a question. I mean, and I don't know if anybody really knows this. So this whole thing of they were going to cut him was over contract talks that stalled out. They just could not come to an agreement. And why they decided to do it right now, I don't know. Maybe did Stephon Gilmore say, I'm not playing anymore?
I mean, he's already on the PUP list, so I mean, he was on the physically unable to perform list. Anyways, he was gonna be on another extra, and he's not able to play till week 7. I think the vibe between him already being on the PUP list, the contracts not stalling, they just felt it was gonna be toxic, and fortunately for us, because the dynasty's finally collapsed, but they're in the process of trying to rebuild that culture back to that dynasty mentality. And when you have a disgruntled player around that core of youth, it's not a good idea to set the foundation that way. So I think it was best for them to move on. But looking at the other side, Carolina Panthers, it's a defense that just keeps improving. We talk about how great the Broncos defense is. Carolina is just they're going to be a top 5 defense for years with the way that that youth. I mean, all their best players are first and second year players, and I mean they're just dominating defensively. They could have played better last week and got me one of the wins on the pick'em, but it's whatever.
Yeah, that's going to be a tougher battle going forward if Dallas just keeps playing the way they're playing, though. So
yeah,
absolutely. The other big one is unfortunate news for us. Dallas Cowboys released inside linebacker Jalen Smith, and within less than an hour of him being released, he decided that he wanted to go to play at Lambeau and signed with the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers were actually already tied up a contract ready to get Stephon Gilmore as well. So Green Bay was looking to spend some money on the defense today. There was a real possibility they were going to end up with both guys. So thankfully that didn't happen for, not for us, but for the NFC North. I could care less if they got both of them, but they're getting a hell of a player in Jalen Smith who just sounds like there was some tension between the coaching staff and Jalen Smith.
Yeah, they changed their defensive scheme, and I think his playing time dropped drastically. He had only been playing about 56% of the snaps this season, so I think he was upset about that. And I think he just was not in their future plans. So
yeah, he's not a good fit for Denver.
I wish Denver would have swooped in and offered like a 4th or 5th rounder for him, and seeing if we could have got him. So, but we don't know if Peyton did or not. So,
worst case scenario would have been going inside of our division. So, going off to Lambeau is not the worst case scenario. But yeah,
right.
Would have liked to see him in a Broncos uniform. Would have been
great coverage linebacker.
Yeah,
and he really good scheme fit for us.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Broncos did make some news today with signing, yesterday with signing an inside linebacker. He's been fairly relevant for the last few years, played with Tennessee, last played for Pittsburgh. Avery Williamson, I mean, he's not a barn burner or anything by that, but I mean, he's definitely a serviceable linebacker who's great in coverage. He's kind of taken a step back the last couple of years, but he's on our practice squad, so we'll see if he's brought up. Baron Browning is also, I forgot to mention him earlier, he's still nursing an injury as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets the call in to play up to ball out with us this Sunday against Pittsburgh. So those are the big ones for right now.
Yep. I'll just say the last thing is Urban Meyer continues to simmer down in Jacksonville.
I was going to go there, but then I was like, should we go there?
We could just make it that just a quick mention. It's still really hot in Jacksonville. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? We'll just see how things play out over the next few weeks. But, man, It could be anything right now.
Yeah, he came out today and made the statement that he's committed to the team and he's not going to be stepping away from the team. So, essentially, he's going to make it to where they're going to have to either let him go or he'll just keep doing these kind of nonchalant things that have like, oh, I did that? Oh, I'm sorry. Because we all know he's already got USC on the line.
Well,
on the line.
And here's the thing: USC just fired their coach because of cultural issues. So are they going to bring in Urban Meyer?
Yeah, I don't see that at all.
Big baller mentality is what they're looking at. So we'll see.
Maybe UCF, maybe he seems like that might be more of a better fit.
So
he has to get out of Florida. He's got to get out of Florida.
What's the over under on how many more weeks he lasts in Jacksonville?
If they go 0-6, I think he's gone. I think if they hit 0-6, he's not going to be there.
I wonder when their bye week is. I'm going to say that's when it would happen.
I mean, did you guys read the Michael Silver report about this though? Real quick?
No. No.
Essentially, he said that multiple players had told Michael Silver they have no faith in him, no trust in him. He's lost the locker room. They feel that he's a laughingstock. He came in and he didn't even have the confidence to apologize to the team as a whole. He split them up into position groups. And then when he talked to the team as a whole to wrap it up, as soon as he left the room, the entire locker room bursted in laughter. They feel that they have no respect for this guy. And it's just turbulent times in Jacksonville, but what can you expect? I mean, you never know if it's 100% accurate, but Michael Silver's a pretty darn good reporter. So,
wow.
That's where they're at.
That does catch us up on news for the last 2 days. Holy
that was
definitely
rapid. So, but I did have areas the Broncos need to improve in week 5, but I feel like we can kind of mesh this because the biggest area that we've probably all agree need to improve is the coaching. So without further ado, we've made it to the unfiltered coaching review. And we kind of we'll break this down. I guess we can go coach by coach. And it's not. I think Vic Fangio kind of doubles down as defensive coordinator and head coach. I mean, Ed Donatell's there, but
yeah, I'm not blaming Ed for anything. Ed has no say in anything.
He's who Vic fires if the defense doesn't perform.
Right.
So. But let's start with our good old friend Tom McMahon.
Oh, Tom?
Let's start with Tom.
I don't understand how this guy keeps his job. I really don't. I've said this multiple times. I don't understand how this guy keeps his job. It seems every game there's at least one special teams blunder. I mean, if your guys are not fulfilling their duties on special teams, you probably got guys down on the practice squad that would probably come up and try a heck of a lot harder. I mean, how hard is it really you're assigned a lane? Hey, you got this area of the field. You go down this way. It's a mental issue that these guys have, and I mean, I don't understand it. It has to be part coaching, and then, just part mental on the player side. But I don't understand how Tom McMahon still has a job here. We've had the worst special teams, or one of the bottom, special teams units for probably 3 or 4 years now.
Pretty much since he's been here.
And he's even a holdover. That's the surprising part.
Yeah,
I'm just reading right here real quick. It seems that Brandon McManus and Tom McMahon are like best friends. I'm just kidding. That was the only thing that seemed to make sense. You know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah, I'm right there. With you. I mean, special teams is. No matter where you're at, we laugh at special teams, and out of the coaching positions, it is the easiest to coach. I mean, you are taught as as early as Pee Wee, stay in your lane. There's 11 guys with the same target.
Mm-hmm.
You hit and you wrap up. So especially with punts, things like that. I mean, I don't understand how we're having so many breakdowns in coverage, and I don't understand what he's tried to do to correct this. Somewhere there's a disconnect. At some point, somebody has to be held accountable. And when it comes down to it, is it one coach or is it 11 guys? And it's easier to get rid of the one coach than it is the 11 guys. So eventually, if he doesn't clean it up, I think that might be the first scapegoat. Our special teams are bad. Tom, you're fired.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he can't clean it up because he's on borrowed time as this entire staff is right now.
The kind of the pathetic thing about the whole thing is that we have a kicker that kicks off through the back of the end zone, so that you don't have to have any coverage just about on any home team kick off at this point. Probably at least 60-70% of the away kicks he puts through the back of the end zone too.
Mm-hmm.
We were only really asking a few kickoffs and punts, and we cannot get this right. It's amazing because I was even a little bit critical of Sam Martin when he first came to us because, quite honestly, I didn't think he was kicking to his spots, which was putting our coverage team in a bad position. This year, he's been – last week, it was right along the sideline, right where you want a kick to be. You know what I mean? You've cornered that guy in. There's only one thing to do. corner him in and tackle him. And we didn't do either for quite some time.
Right.
So, I agree that I don't know what this. I don't know if anybody has anything to say about the special teams coach.
I don't know what the disconnect is. I've been trying to figure it out, but I can't. Don't
understand.
We didn't even grade the special teams part or our kickers. I would give Sam Martin the highest grade. Not only was he pinning him on the corners, I mean, he got him inside the 20, inside the 5 multiple times. He did fantastic.
Yep.
Last week, there's my starter of the game for last week. Good job. Good job, Sam Martin.
It's pretty bad when your punter's the star of the game.
Well, I mean, he had 10 or 11 punts. I can't even remember. It was a forgettable game for us Bronco fans.
Yes, it definitely was.
All right, shifting gears to I don't know, should I call him our favorite discussion topic in our group chat? The man, the myth, the legend himself, Pat Shurmur. Noble coaching review. Which one of you guys want to go first? I mean,
I'll let Keith go first this time.
Okay. First off, it just comes off of the game plan to begin with. And to come in with a game plan like we did was just astounding. We knew if they were going to come after us, how they were going to come after us. And it was attacking our weak offensive line, which meant we should have had been running the ball, which we didn't do. We twice in the second half. Is that what I understand? I don't have the stats in front of me, Dave. I know you're.
It was something.
Four rushing attempts.
Four rushing attempts in the second half. Screenplay was almost not there. Few. Anything that was quick and a quick decision was not there to begin the game. So we start off that way, and then we've talked about it week in and week out. This coaching staff needs to learn how to adjust. I don't know what it is, but they do not adjust no matter what. They have got it stuck in their head what they want to do. There is not a – other than we're going to go more running or more passing, which has all been more passing, they stick to the exact same game plan that I've seen all week or all day and run their head into the wall. I disappointing from Pat Shurmur, but I've come to expect it. I don't know what else to say. I don't know if we're supposed to be giving grades, but this guy has got to learn how to. My biggest thing is just the adjustments. This was a big flop when it came to coming in and not game planning properly, and that's going to happen. Just like you're going to come in flat sometimes, you're not going to have a good game as a quarterback. It doesn't matter. You're not going to have the right coaching scheme to go into a game sometimes, but you have to be able to react and adjust, and that's where it was an absolute failure on Pat Shurmur completely. So, Dave, take it away. Give me something good.
I don't think there is anything good to have, except for in the first half, we ran the ball, I think, 12 times. No, I'm sorry, 13 times because Bridgewater ran it once. So, not what you want to do, especially when you're averaging over 6 yards a carry. Yep. You want to keep pounding the ball, and that should have been your primary objective coming into this game because, like Keith mentioned, you knew you had some starters out on your offensive line, and we needed to protect these guys as much as possible, and putting them into pass protection situations is not a good thing to do. This guy cannot adjust to save his life. When Drew Lock comes into the game, you get out of your 3-wide set and you go to what your quarterback is comfortable with. It's not rewriting the whole game plan or game book like everybody says. You go to 2 tight end sets, you run the ball, and you let Drew Lock throw out of play action pass. I will give this guy a total F.
I completely agree with you. It's been time and time again that we've seen just the misutilization. The first 3 weeks, Pat Shurmur had a solid A. He found a game plan. It was working. Heading into week 4, we were utilizing the same game plan, and it was working. We were controlling time of possession. We were moving down the field. Was it as effective as it was the first 3 weeks? No, but didn't it lead up to us to going up 7-0? Yeah, it did. It gave us the lead. We were feeling the momentum. We were riding it, averaging over 6 yards a carry. The one difference we seen was they were trying to focus on throwing the ball outside early, even with Teddy, rather than keeping it on the inside. And that was the biggest adjustment, and that was hurting our passing game.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hollywood Brown play happens. Or they score, then they continue to pop on. The second we get down a touchdown, it's like the entire offensive philosophy has changed into this hyper aggressive. We're going to just constantly pound the ball. We're throwing it deep. We're throwing outside the hashes and abandoning the run.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where I'm getting torn, because as much as I want to throw this on Pat Shurmur, and it could very well all be on Pat Shurmur, the problem is who panicked? Why did we go into panic mode? It's still 10. It's only a 10-point game at halftime. But we saw the panic happen before halftime. We seen the panic settle in as soon as they got their touchdown. We went into panic.
Yeah, when it was 14-7.
Yeah,
it
went into immediate panic. And my question
I'm going to say part of it is on Vic.
That's what I'm wondering.
Because Vic, as the head coach, if Pat did make the change and said, I'm going to start doing, Vic, as the head coach, should have said, get back on the game plan that we had coming into this game. We're down a touchdown. We're not down 30 points.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is where I'm going to have the opposite fact. I wonder if it was Vic applying the pressure to Pat Shurmur. I mean, Pat Shurmur was probably already feeling flustered because it wasn't going exactly how he wanted to. But once Vic Fangio's defense wasn't holding them to nothing anymore, was Vic Fangio adding some additional fuel to the fire? I mean, we see coaches bicker on sidelines all the time. We're not in the headsets. We don't know the conversation.
Right.
We don't know what's going on. How much pressure did Vic apply to Pat Shurmur to be aggressive is what I wish we could find out. And that's because that's what we've seen. It seemed like we'll transition into Vic Fangio now, because I give Pat an F as well. I mean, it was just horrible adjustments. You went away from what was working, and it was a catastrophe. Our offensive game plan fell apart in front of us, and it was just horrendous. I mean, the last part I'll hype up is, how do you abandon the run after the Javonte Williams run? I just don't understand it. Yeah. You guys were hungry. Your offensive line was hungry for that. Don't know why you wandered away from it. Shifting into Vic Fangio, how much panic was on Vic Fangio, because his defensive game plan, as well as possibly this imposed panic he put on the offensive coordinator, what we see in the entire game plan is we seen the entire box stacked the entire game. We had sometimes 7 or 8 players inside the box, meaning leaving every single member of our secondary on one-on-one coverage with no help.
Yeah.
And you were getting so busy trying to contain a run that was already non-existent that your front four probably could have contained. Or if you even let them run the 150 yards a game, it may not have looked ugly. If we maybe had allowed them to get some more of their runs and get a little bit of the run game going, which, is fine. They got to 100 yards anyway. They may not have been as effective in the passing game because you would have had your help. You would have played in your soft zones, and you wouldn't have been beaten over the top. That Hollywood Brown play doesn't happen if you're not stacking the box and leaving your guys on 2D. You're leaving your corners on man-to-man, and somehow, there was a miscommunication. Somebody was supposed to be on Hollywood Brown. He should not have ran up the field all by himself, because when you're stacking the box with 8, you're in man coverage.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Keith.
Boy, first off, I want to go back a little bit. I think it was all Pat Shurmur, and his idea and his mindset in the second half. I agree with Dave. I think we should have seen Fangio marching down the sideline, and a discussion should have been had. But what, Vic Fangio was brought in.
That's also in the box, though, so that does play a factor.
Well, then you talk to him in the headset then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So pick up the damn phone and say, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I've seen that phone ring.
Right.
That being said, Vic Fangio was brought in for our defense, and we've been talking about it week in and week out. There's no defensive pressure up front. Go right back up to what Matt just got done saying. No defensive pressure up front from our front four. So what do? We start bringing 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 in order to try to bring pressure. I don't think it was about the run. I think the run was secondary. We were doing good against the run even when we had 4 guys and our linebackers stayed at home. That was all about trying to get to Lamar Jackson and trying to get him off of a passing game that was obviously just killing us. And even with 6 and 7 and 8 guys, we struggled to get there. He was still completing passes down the field. We finally started getting to him, but it was the same type of pressure that they would get with 5. We were getting with 7 or 8.
Right.
Just a complete mismanagement from that side of things. They need to, again, their blitz package is predictable. Their stunts are non-existent. If we want to start talking about the defense on the back end, then we can start talking about everything that went wrong there too, and we can put that on Vic Fangio.
Yeah, total breakdown.
My biggest thing, and I know we've talked about it before. I think on our initial wrap up, we had a great opportunity down just a few points. Second half, like a minute 53 to go, we had stopped the Ravens, and they were having to punt towards us. They did end up punting, but we let it run all the way down, let over 30 seconds run off the clock. They took a delay of game penalty. They end up punting the ball to us, and now next thing you know, we have just over a minute and 3 timeouts to go the length of the field as they punted inside the 10-yard line
and try to score twice.
Yeah, so it was just
it's another.
It was
episode.
a complete debacle in that half. In that behalf, another thing that I was just this is just a personal rant of mine. This is just a huge beef I had when Vic Fangio came out after the game and said that he thought the Ravens played a dirty tactic and a dirty way of playing, or I'm paraphrasing, and saying that going for the 42-yard or the 42 consecutive game streak and 100-yard games for the Baltimore Ravens was a bad play, and they didn't care about player safety. It's just bad coaching.
Sorry,
that's
of all the things that should have been a headline coming out of that wasn't it. That wasn't where the game went bad and the game was wrong and there was a mistake in the game, or the game turned, or the game got out of control, or you lost the game. That was just petty stuff because you weren't prepared. Your guys didn't know about it. They expected something completely different, and they ran it, and they got it. And if, as a Bronco fan, if I had 42 game consecutive streak of any kind happening, and Vic Fangio didn't put our offense in the place to keep that going, I would be blowing my lid about it. I don't care. I want every opportunity for that to keep going. So,
and if you got a problem with it, line up and stop them.
Yeah, exactly. You should play every single game. And don't get me wrong. I know if those guys would have been told, hey, they're trying to go for the 100-yard consecutive record, those guys would have lined up. They wouldn't have cared about the pass. They would have played the run real hard, and there would have been a chance that we might have stopped them.
Right.
But those guys as players aren't out there keeping track per yard. So if that's going to go on anybody, that has to go right back to the coaching. So don't be mad at the Baltimore Ravens, and don't be mad at your own guys. Be mad at yourself because you put them in that position.
Yeah, and to highlight that really quick, I mean, going back to looking at players, I mean, the Brett Favre, Michael Strahan sack record breaking, he just fell into the fetal position. Players probably would have just allowed that to happen anyways. It wasn't a big deal, and he made it a way bigger deal than it ever needed.
It was a deflection is what it was.
Yeah.
That's all Vic Fangio does. When something goes wrong, he deflects the attention off of him onto somebody else.
And that's what I was going to say. In wrapping all this up, didn't matter if it was the game plan coming in, the march down the field to talk to Pat Shurmur, or just not even the fact that you were able to man up and say, hey, we had a bad loss out there. We have a lot of things that we need to improve. Hats off to the Baltimore Ravens and their consecutive record, and we're going on to the next week. He just showed no confidence as a head coach throughout this entire week and the week leading up, I guess, too. Boy, what a disappointment. Honestly, Vic Fangio fan really was really excited for when Vic Fangio came in, for those who didn't know prior to. And this is kind of just a culmination of letdowns all in one game, including a post-game conference, press conference. So.
Yeah, and that's the things I was going to bring up. Horrible clock management. Again, he proved he cannot manage a game. I mean, what are you doing? And I even think there was an episode at the end of the first half where he didn't use a timeout, where we could have used it and maybe
that was the one I was referencing, Dave.
Oh, okay.
You were
okay.
right there with
Then I'm thinking of the one at the end of the game when we got the ball back, and he's not taking timeouts, and he doesn't start taking timeouts until there's 28 seconds left, and it's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a 16-point touchdown. Just remember that.
Right. So,
well, and then I'm sorry, not to cut you off, Dave, but to immediately then call out the other team about player safety, and you're down there taking timeouts at 28 seconds and throwing the ball up when there's no possibility you're back into this game.
Right. Right.
So go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
No. and you know what? If he would have used his timeouts, correctly, and because I think we had over a minute and a half when we got the ball back.
I agree.
You could have scored a quick touchdown. Quick touchdown, 2-point conversion. You still got over a minute. You kick an onside kick, you get it, you have a chance. Yeah. But when you get down there with 28 seconds left, don't start, taking timeouts and then throwing the ball around and then accuse the other coach of not caring about player safety.
Yeah.
When you really don't have a chance at winning at that time. As you can tell, I'm very frustrated, Fangio. I think I've been frustrated
next week
with
we're
him
going to dedicate a good portion to a coaching review. I think after next week we'll jump right into that, depending on what happens, either good or bad. That'll be the game plan next week. We'll kind of make that a weekly thing. We'll, instead of breaking it down whole team, but I think we need to focus on coaching staff and minimize some of the team stuff. But real quick, we're already over a lot of time. It's becoming normal for us.
Yeah.
Before we hop off, just real quick, Thursday night game is tomorrow. Rapid fire, Seahawks, Rams. I'm going Rams. Keith, where are you going?
I'm going Seahawks 23-17.
And I'm going to go with the Rams. They have to bounce back after that performance against Arizona.
I don't think they do it in Seattle.
All righty, gents.
All right, everyone.
As I'm being bombarded by the Stafaro cheerleaders here, it's been real. It's been fun. We'll be back Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and we'll talk some Broncos pregame, and hopefully we can talk about good adjustments being made for next week when we do the postgame review. So,
yes,
as always, go Broncos, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for
good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.